Take my word for it. Technique is not the difficult thing in art. Any reasonably capable youth can readily master all the technical problems in existence in a few short months, but it requires many a long and weary year to learn to see. Burge Harrison, artist, lecturer, and author. This is The Artful Painter, art lessons for artists, collectors, and people who love art. Skip Whitcomb says the subject of a painting is the painting, not the subject itself. He reasons that the viewer will never see the actual subject. Therefore, we must make that painting as captivating and poetic as possible. It's nothing more than paint on a canvas. That is what we attempt in its purest form. Skip states, once you internalize the language of painting, you never see the world the same way. It never leaves you. The veil of rational order is lifted, and what hangs in the air are sensations of painted possibilities. On good days, some would call it poetry. Skip Whitcomb resides in Colorado. He has received numerous awards for his landscape paintings in oil and pastel. At the 2017 Prix de West Show in Oklahoma City, for example, Skip was honored with the Donald Teague Memorial Award for Best Work on Paper. Skip is an active member of the Plein Painters of America. In fact, it was at a Plein Painters of America event at the Booth Museum of Western Art about 2 years ago that I first met Skip. In this episode of The Artful Painter, Skip shares his 5 principles of painting that each artist must master. His love of nature and geology are integral to his art making. He is not a painter simply passing through the landscape of the American West. He lingers at each location, intently observing. Skip says his time outdoor painting is his opportunity to harvest ideas and concepts. Often visiting the same locations time and again, these timeless places become like old friends who continue to delight you as you discover new things about them. Skip seeks purity of vision in his work. My name is Carl Olson, and this is The Artful Painter. Well, Skip, you just got back from the Coors. What's the official word for it? Coors Western Art Exhibit?
Coors Western Art Exhibit and Sale.
Okay. Yeah, you were featured in that. That must have been quite a feeling to do that.
A few years ago, I was. Yeah. They select someone each year to feature, and they purchase a piece for their permanent collection, and then make a poster and do that.
When I said featured, I just meant you were one of the displaying artists.
Oh,
so
right.
That shows you my naivety with it. This is all new to me, Skip. I just think it's cool you were in the show.
oh yeah. I've been in that show for a long time.
It's quite a journey to get there.
It is. Yeah, it's it's a good show, and it is. The profile now is one of. It's the first major show of the year for invitational show for traditional painting and sculpture. Yeah, so it's an important show.
That's in Denver. It's in Denver? Is that right?
It is. Yeah. Yes, in Denver.
Yeah. So you're in the Fort Collins area.
I am.
Yeah. So you drive through some impressive landscape there.
Yes, we do. And the further north you go, the more impressive it gets. Which is,
you know,
opposite direction.
I've traveled
Denver.
In a lot of different places, but it's really hard to beat the American West in the variety of landscape.
Oh, indeed, it is. This is one of the most diverse country, I think, on the planet. We have such great variety within a close area, within close proximity. You know, it's a very active area. Geologically, it's always been a very active area as opposed to the east, and where that's all much older mountain ranges and all the result of heavy glaciation in the last ice age. And so we're still young out here. We're still growing. And it's an exciting area. It is.
It shows in your paintings. I'm just looking at your archive of works, and you're quite adept at a number of different subjects, but it seems that the landscape, especially landscape that features geological formations like mountains, hoodoos, and things like that, seem to be a prominent part of your art. What draws you to that?
Well, I grew up, my parents and grandparents were ranchers, and so I grew up outside. So I spent vast bulk of my time outdoors, always did, and I love it. I love being outdoors and exploring. That's always, from the time I was a little kid, I love just taking off and hiking and kicking rocks and, seeing what was underneath them. And you sort of never grew out of it, I guess. It's, there's an intimate connection with the natural world out here. And, being born into it, you get a little proprietary about it, and I feel like it's mine. So it's mine to explore. I'm in my 70s now, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of places to explore out here. It's and different times of the year, different times of the day. It's new. It presents a new curiosity, let's say. And you look at this stuff and say, "Wow, how did that happen?" And it's just that fascination with it. It doesn't go away. And I started out as a figure painter. I was trained as a classical figure painter, and spent a few years painting figures in the studio and doing that. And a buddy of mine said, "You really need to get outdoors." I said, out landscape's easy. Figures are hard. And he said, let's go out. And he said, pack your gear up. We're gonna go up in the hills here, and we'll see. We'll see what you think of it. I've never been so thoroughly humbled in my life as I did when I got out on location to paint. It was a very sobering eye opener, and I realized then I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to organize my thoughts. I didn't. Yeah, it was so. But I immediately said, "Yep, you're right. This is for me. This is what I want to do. This is who I am. This is where I want to go, and let's see how far it takes me."
I've heard that thought echoed many times through the number of the artists that have been on this show, is the importance of outdoor painting and the discovery of outdoor painting, how it was such an eye-opener to their artistic sensibilities.
It is. You're on overload as soon as you step out the door. You have total freedom. You can do whatever you want. But, it's well, what am I going to talk about? And that's how I approach it is I learned fairly early on that, okay, I'm just going to write a little short essay about this. Now, what am I going to emphasize? What's going to be most important? I can't put everything in. I have to write this little essay about this one, the way the light is, the way the atmosphere is, the way the terrain, the geology, the masses. You have to figure out, okay, what am I going to say? And then say it, or attempt to say it. And you take it in small bites.
So it's like selecting a theme. An essay, you have the theme, and that is now the roadmap for the rest of the essay.
Exactly. Yeah, it is an outline. It is. I compare it often when I'm teaching classes. I say, it's the writing process and the painting process are basically the same. They're just a different vehicle, but the thought process is the same. You got to figure out, okay, what's my concept? What am I going to say? What do I want to talk about? And then put it down in the simplest terms possible.
Is that organizing your thoughts, going through that process, is that something that happens in an instant, or is it something that takes a great deal of study, or is there something in between? Is there sketching involved? I'm trying to visualize what happens in your brain when you're trying to select that theme.
From the time you hit a location, you mean?
Yeah.
Or do you go out with a preconceived concept? Or
either way, yeah.
Well, you can do both. You can approach it both ways. It's there's a great old English writer that said, when we go out to paint, we're actually going out to hunt paintings. And either you can hunt for the dinner pot, so you know where the game is, you know where the birds are going to be, and you go out and you bag one and you bring it home and have dinner. Or you can go out and see where you might find them. So, yes, I mean, I will go out, like I'm getting ready to go on a painting trip next week, and I won't go in with too many preconceived ideas. I know the terrain, and I know kind of some of the things that, I know my triggers. I know the things that really excite me straight away.
So what are your triggers?
I like the big masses, big simple masses with texture, with good form, color combinations, again, atmospheric effects, sometimes those fleeting moments that are so elusive. It's a pretty good sized bag of things that you look for, or that I look for. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any compositions in mind going down there. I'm gonna keep my radar on wide scan for that, which is another aspect of working outdoors. Is you'll get, if you stay receptive to it, you'll get ideas for compositions that you could never dream of. I mean, you see something and you go, wow, now that could be really challenging. And so, do some little thumbnail drawings and see if it might possibly work out and proceed from there. The thumbnail drawings are basically your initial outline. If you were doing a written piece, you're immediately editing. You're immediately trying to reduce it down to its very simplest forms, where less is more, or sometimes less is just less. Less is not enough. You're going to have to rethink your approach. My basic rule of thumb is, with those little thumbnails, if the thumbnail is really starting to speak to me, if I can see it in paint, then I might have something. But if I'm continuing to search and we're not getting that interaction there between my brain and the thumbnail, then I got to move on, because right now it's not working. And it would just be a futile effort to think, well, okay, it kind of works, but I know I can fix it in paint. Rarely does that ever happen. Rarely. It's usually a recipe for a train wreck.
Yeah, I guess at that point you have to scrape it off, and it's more like an underpainting or a wash on the canvas.
Yeah, and I don't even let it get to the point where I'm scraping it off, because if the thumbnail wasn't speaking to me, then I know odds are it's not going to work.
Right.
I need something that I can really feel that, in your heart, in your mind, ooh, okay, I got a connection here. I know this will work. I know it will. And that's your starting point. So you go into it with a confidence that it's going to work if you put things in the right place and you handle it the right way. So it will work. And for me, it's always been about approaching each level with confidence. Confidence in that, knowing that it's going to work. Or it has odds are it's going to work. We're a little past the 50-50 stage. We're going, okay, 60-40, it's going to work. Okay, I can run with this. Yeah. So, that's it's a different for everybody. But I think most of my buddies kind of, we talk about this all the time, and we have similar approaches, and not maybe physically exactly the same, but as far as intellectually, very similar approaches. But when we go to a location, ideally you want to spend at least a few days there on that same location, especially if it's a new one, because you need to know it. You need to feel its pulse. You need to understand what a day looks like there from sunrise to sunset. You need to know it. You need to get to know it. There are many locations I love to. I mean, they're my go-to places that I feel a real intimate connection with, and been going for many, many years, and each time's a new adventure. It's kind of like greeting an old friend again, and same time discovering new things about your old friend.
That's a good way to put it. Exploration and discovery seems to be a big part of this, and then once you discover it, you move in close to examine and to observe and see how it all fits in. What can you discern from what you see?
Right. And what's your response to it? I mean, that's the bottom line is, how am I responding to what I'm seeing? And that's really what I have to paint about, is my response and how this moves me. In what way does it move me? It's what's my connection? Because you're never going to communicate with every person out there. That's just, that's never going to happen. But you hope that at least one other kindred spirit out there sees your work, sees that piece, and says, I know exactly how that feels. I've been there. I understand that. And those are the people. That's your audience.
There's one painting that you have. I saw it a while back. It's called Ascension. It's a pastel, 24 by 24 inches. Mm-hmm. And I get the distinct feeling when I look at this that I'm a drone. I'm hovering from that vantage point. And so it's a unique vantage point. I mean, maybe you were standing someplace. I don't know how this came about, but it has that aerial perspective. I'm intrigued by different viewpoints. So you're making us look at it in a way that maybe we wouldn't have if we were actually standing there.
Well, that particular piece is heavily edited, and from the on the spot piece, the field sketch.
Oh, okay.
And the raw material. I mean, that's what in the field. I'm out just. I'm out harvesting paintings. I'm out harvesting work, ideas, harvesting concepts. And that particular piece, the original for that, the field piece, is up on Donner Pass in the Sierras. And I was up there with a dear friend of mine who's gone now, but we were up there painting for the day. I was on one kind of a ridge, just, probably a few hundred yards off the highway the pass that goes up over the top, and looking across a little drainage into these rock faces. And when I got back to the studio after that trip, I come back and that piece sat around for maybe a year, just sitting in the studio, and I kept looking at it, and I thought, let me see what I can do with this. And so I started working up thumbnails. In the studio, I do that. It's the same process in the studio. I start working thumbnails, and albeit a little bit larger. And I thought, I wonder, I'm going to see how would this compose on a square. So once I established that was the direction I wanted to go, was a square, I started working compositions on that format, because a square is, number one, it's static. And so pretty much anything you do within that square is going to become dynamic. And that particular piece only really has one horizontal line in it. All the rest are diagonals. As I started dividing that space up, dividing that square up, it got more and more dynamic and more exciting. And I thought, okay, here, this has some real potential. And so then I did another small, I think it was a 12 by 12, quick oil study, just to make sure the color is going to work. As long as I have my ducks lined up, that's it. And that goes back to this thing of approaching with confidence, going into it with confidence. And so, things came together the way, in an exciting way. And I thought, okay, I have something here, and I could go up. And I decided to work it in pastel instead of oil.
It's beautiful. Why did you choose pastel over oil?
I don't know. I never know these things. It's just, I'll decide to do one in pastel, and I'll get about a third of the way in it and into the piece and step back and look at it and go, well, you dummy, you should have done this in oil. It would have been a lot easier. And vice versa, I start in with an oil, a big oil piece, and get part way into it, and this would have worked so much better in pastel. But you're stuck with it. Okay, just ride it out. So I mean I don't mean to be offhanded about it, but it really is, in many times is just about that whimsical for me. I don't know why I do that. It's just like, well, this could be interesting. This could be an even bigger challenge in one medium or the other. I love both. I love both mediums very much. And in fact, when I'm working, I don't really discriminate between the two in terms of my approach. I approach my pastels exactly the same way I approach an oil, and vice versa. I mean, the process from laying out to blocking in is the same. So that's a mission I've kind of been on for at least 20 or 30 years now, is to bring my processes together so they're all the same, because I love watercolor too. And although I don't show any watercolors anymore, the freshness of thinking that switching medium can give a person, give me, it's too easy to fall into habits, kind of recipes of whether it's in oil, no matter what medium it is. And I try to be constantly on guard about that I'm not falling into a set routine, that I'm not going to the well too many times, that I do everything I can to keep my thought process fresh. So it's kind of always a surprise.
I guess I'm probably being simplistic, but I think of it like if I'm drawing with my right hand, I'm right-handed, but if I try it in my left, it's forcing me to think in a different way. I'll get obviously different results, but it does force you to kind of think differently.
It does.
When you switch.
No, you're right on with that. Yeah, no, you're right on the money with that. That you understand what I'm saying, and I just think it's hugely important. We're only here for a short period of time, and I think it's incumbent upon us to, at least for me, this is my mission. I want to see how far I can go with this. I want to see what's rattling around inside. I want that sense of adventure in the work. And I know, much to the chagrin of dealers over the years, my work has been a little bit hard to put a finger on because I have varied interests.
So what are they saying are they saying, hey, Skip, I want you to do these beautiful river scenes, stop doing this? Or, I mean, is it that overt or?
Sometimes it has been. Not anymore, because because I don't deal with that many people anymore.
I'm going to do this on my terms.
The ones I want to. No, it's but it could be that overt. Is, well, if you give us some more of these water scenes, we can sell. Those last 3 you sent us, we sold every one of those. We could do the half a dozen more, just like that. And my initial reaction is, well, that's probably the last thing I'm going to do. And my wife has always accused me of being my own worst enemy in that respect. And that, they tell you they want these things, and then you go the opposite direction. And
they just need to use reverse psychology on you.
Well, you know what? Maybe I ought to put that on the back of my card and give it to them when we start out. Yeah. I've always had a bit of a problem with authority figures, I guess, and I kind of like to do my own thinking. So, and which is kind of the difference between first few years as I was school, I did a lot of graphic design and illustration work because I had a family to support. But in that world, that's an honorable profession, and
yes,
it's a great place to learn discipline and to hone your craft. But in the end, you're always painting someone else's ideas. They're not yours. And that was what I wanted to escape from as soon as I could. And so, I try not to be a total curmudgeon about
no, I get it. I mean, I was similar, but I had a business to run, so I kind of developed this. Yeah, there was times I was unhappy with the decisions that the customers made, and I didn't enjoy that process. I had to make a living, so I would do it, and I would try to find a way to be creative within those confines. But it was nothing like just being able to be in my studio and say, "Hey, what am I going to paint today?" That's liberating in some respects.
Well, it's liberating. It can be very intimidating too.
It sure can. Yeah.
Because all of a sudden now you're responsible for everything. and believe me, there are certainly times, there have been times when you wish that there was somebody saying, yeah, hey, why don't you try this? You go, oh, okay, God, I'd totally forgotten that. Yeah, good idea. You'd like to have that little voice on your shoulder, whisper in your ear. But when you make the decision to follow this thing, it's a huge step, and it's a scary one. But
what's the biggest fear that you faced with it?
Oh, I'd never sell another painting. Of course.
Yeah.
That last one that went to the show and that you sold could be the last one you ever sell, and you still have a family to support, and you still have all the obligations. You go, oh boy, what have I done to us? But I think if you keep the faith, the faith in your work and your vision, and you're honest with yourself, and you try your level best to get better each time you step up to the palette, to the easel, things work out. And it's a little bit of a Pollyanna attitude, but for the most part, it's worked okay for almost 50 years.
I think what I'm getting from that in part is, it's like I could dream about something forever. I could read about it forever. I could watch all the videos about it. I could attend lectures, but if I never actually did it, I would never become what I wanted to be.
No. And you're right on the money with that. It's like, as so many professions, it's experiential. You have to get in there and do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is no different than writing or music or practicing law or writing software or anything. You can dream about it, read about it, but nothing's going to happen until you step into it, up to your belt loops and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Now, I have gotten myself in a pickle a few times.
Well, haven't we all? Yeah.
A client would say, would you do this? They didn't ask me, can you do this? They would say, right. Would you do this? Would you be what? And I look at it and say, okay, to myself, I know absolutely nothing about that, but I'll give it a go. Yes, I would do that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I did that many times when I first started out in the illustration and design world. I was go to a client and they'd say, well, we need you to do this. Can you do that? Well, sure. Yeah, I can do that. I go back to the studio and start calling buddies and say, hey, I just got this job and I have no idea how to approach this. But, you just kind of buffalo your way through. And again, you apply your tools and, it all worked out. Worked out just fine.
Yeah.
So, but it's having the courage to say, yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah, watch this.
Sometimes I didn't do as well as I should have.
Excuse me. Well, yeah, there's always that. I mean, when you step back, it's no matter how complete you feel a piece is.
Yeah.
Even today, you step back, it has to go to the show, and you step back and look at it, and boy, I wish I just had another week with this piece, or you walk into the show and see it hanging. Hey, dang it! I missed that passage up in the corner. If I could get that back, I would do this, or I would do that, or I'd change this whole area over here. But it's it's what you do, and that was the most complete thought at the moment that you could do that day. At the end of that day.
Yeah, just take you a tube of paint in your pocket and just squeeze it on there, right?
Yeah,
like Turner did back in the.
Oh yeah, yeah. On signing day, yeah. Or varnishing day, they call it varnishing day.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go in and finish the piece.
Well, you were talking about doing the painting Ascension earlier, and you mentioned how it was an edit essentially, which is quite beautifully done. And it reminded me of something that I took away from a lecture that you gave a couple of years ago, where you said something to the effect of, we're not reporters, we're poets. We tell believable exaggerations. And I thought, ooh, I like that. That's exactly what we do.
Right. Yeah. We editorialize and we make it our own. And we make it from our point of view. And again, back to those things, what is it that moved me? This is what I want to write about. This is what I want to paint about. Yeah, otherwise, photography would be the king. Unfortunately, it is in many respects. Oh, that looks just like a photograph. And
you understand what they're saying.
Oh yeah,
but we take it personally. I know.
Yeah, I know. And we're seem to be moving into kind of one or more of those cycles again. Everything is cyclic in the world. Everything, and certainly in our profession, you see it. The kind of the poster concepts, the highly photorealistic pieces, and some are really well done. Others are just kind of following the herd, which you hope to see these younger painters really testing their wings and seeing who they are. And there are some wonderful younger painters coming up. I mean, just astounding talents.
Who do you have your eye on?
One of my favorite younger painters coming up right now is Jill Carver. Holy cow.
Oh, my goodness,
She's got
yes.
Powerful work. And it's uniquely hers. I thoroughly enjoy all my buddies' work, but we're not so much the younger crowd anymore. but Matt Smith, I mean, he's a dear friend, and I always enjoy seeing what Matt's doing, especially his new work. He's working larger and some. I mean, not that his work wasn't thoughtful before. He's really. I always enjoy seeing his new work. And older friends like George Carlson. George is a great, great painter.
Yes.
And what a thinker. I always excited to see George's new thoughts and what he's doing. All great people, great people to talk to. They're thoughtful, they're dedicated, they're completely immersed in this process of ours. My longtime pal, traveling companion, T. Allen Lawson, he's stretching the limits for. He's always pushing his boundaries.
He even gets experimental. I mean, some of his work has been really interesting to see. That's just a complete departure from what he normally does.
Yeah, he's fearless. Yeah, he just gets out there and.
I like that.
I do too. I think it goes back to the heart of who we are and what our process is. I think it's really important to step way out there. Not that you're necessarily going to show it, but it expands that horizon for you, for each individual. You can step out and work. I enjoy working with totally non-objective compositions because instead of taking a step, of maybe 2 feet, by doing that, it forces me to take a step of 20 feet. So now I have a marker out there. Now I say, wow, this is exciting. To me, it's very stimulating. So now instead of taking small steps, I can take a much bigger step and incorporate that into my thinking. It's taking those chances. It's standing there with your toes hanging over the edge of the cliff and saying, okay, I'm comfortable with this. This is exhilarating. This gets my adrenaline flowing. It's scary. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't know what that felt like. It's about risk taking, and the risk is to ourselves, only to ourselves. But it's so easy to play it safe, and to have a little recipe box of 3 or 4 or 5 things that that are going to work because you've sold a dozen of them, and if you find yourself at a loss, you just go back to the recipe box. That's not growing.
No.
That's staying on a plateau. And some people are very comfortable with that. And that's fine. But my world is one of taking risks. I want to do that. Otherwise, I won't have any idea what my full potential might be.
What's an example of a risk that you've taken recently that altered the way you think about painting?
Well, I'm working on a composition right now, and I guess I could probably say that its origins are kind of along the lines of Ascension in terms of the thought process, but it's different. And to me, it's a direction that I'm exploring now. And many of these things will take a number of years to come to fruition. It might have been just a seed, a chance that you took. Say, for instance, we'll use, for example, Ascension. That was a fun risk to take, and it was I kind of stepped out there with it, and then put it away and explored other directions. But keep coming back to that seed, that thought of, okay, if I do this, if I flatten. What we risk getting into, Carl, is into the mechanics of picture building. Yeah, and I don't want to get too far off into the weeds but it's into the abstract thinking, and my thinking has for years been abstract. I don't think about the subject. The subject is nothing more than an excuse for a painting. That's all it is. It's irrelevant in many respects because you've pulled the. You've gone to the locations, you've explored them, you've essentially captured the spirit of it for yourself. You've pulled away what you needed, then to move on to the next, take it to the next level, where that's up. And then you get in. Then I get into, okay, how do I want to divide this space? How do I want to flatten it? Do I want to give it a sense of 3 dimension, or how few shapes can I get away with? I mean, can I get away with only 3? Or do I need 5? Or can I get away with do 3 and very discreetly subdivide that one big space, give it more character without violating its mass, its big shape? What color palette am I going to design for this? I'm going, and that's another. I mean, we design the composition, we design the palette that we're going to use. That's an equal part of the composition. So they're all part and parcel of that final statement. And there's a lot of planning that goes in. And I love the studio process of building a painting and building it from the ground up. I got the raw materials. I've harvested these raw materials from outdoors. Now I come in and I start building the painting, building the concept, building this thing around a concept. Oftentimes, I may use 2 or 3 or 4 different location paintings, outdoor pieces, for one piece. Because I'll take a piece of a foreground from here and a midground from there, or a passage from up there, and incorporate it into this one. And so, I mean, all these stacks of outdoor pieces, and I have hundreds of them in the studio. They're a tremendous resource, and they're my resource. This resource wouldn't work for anybody else. I mean, it's not like a reference library where you can go in and check precedents, on a particular law and make it work for 3 different law firms. No, these are, and every one of us are like that. I know Matt's that way, Dan's that way, Ralph. I mean, we all have this. We all save these location pieces, on-the-spot pieces we do, because they're such a valuable resource. They're the tracks of our life, of our professional life. They are the record of our journey. All my sketchbooks with all my thumbnails in them, I date and time, write down the date and the time of day that I do those. I'm working through those so they correlate to the field sketches that are stacked in the studio. They're just a tremendous resource.
I think one of the things about all the people that you've mentioned, and yourself included, people who I consider artists that resonates with me are people who have interests in other things. It's while painting is it's a compulsion, it can be an obsession, but is not the sole obsession or compulsion. An example is like Lynn Schmiel and his vineyard and his garden.
Right.
There's something else that feeds the heart of the artist in each one. And I know talking on the phone with you in past conversations, there was one that really resonated with me. You and I have a similar interest in geology.
Right.
Yeah. And I think about that every time I travel, whether it's here in Georgia or elsewhere. Since I was a little kid, that was something that always fascinated me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, my love of geology is my love of the land. And I think I mentioned to you in a previous conversation, I am in no way to be considered a geologist. I know enough to be really dangerous to myself and loaded with misinformation. But nevertheless, I study the areas where I'm going. And so I do have a familiarity with it. I love reading about geology and geologists. But that is a keen interest of mine and has been, as with you, for basically all my life. If I didn't do this thing, this painting thing, then I would have been a field geologist. I would have devoted my time to learn all the terminology and all the chemistry and do that. But I chose a different route, so that's more of my avocation.
I just got a book. I got to tell you about it, okay? It's called, I picked this up several months ago at a Goodwill store, of all places, so I paid like $1 for it. It's called The Anatomy of Nature, Geology and the American Landscape Painting, 1825 to 1875. It's written by Rebecca Bedell. This is an amazing book. She takes, Thomas Moran, Albert Beardstadt, and some of the others, and how there was this intense fascination with geology in the 19th century. I mean, they would have packed out lectures and people just loved it. They ate it up because, the West was being explored. There was the exploration of the 40th parallel and all of these things that were going on. So I'm sorry. This is about you, not me. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No, I understand. I read there's a wonderful book, and I hope I get the title right. I read it several years ago. It was called The Ice Finders.
The Ice Finders, okay.
Yes, that same time period. There were 3 geologists, one in the U.S., one in France, one in England, I believe. Anyway, they discovered glaciation. This was when they established the fact that glaciers actually covered big swaths of the northern hemisphere. And about their search, about their arguments with their peers, and the fact that they were dismissed as being crazy. This couldn't happen. And I mean, it sounds kind of dry, but it's an exciting story.
Oh no! Look, I just found the book title. It says, "The Ice Finders: How a Poet, a Professor, and a Politician Discovered the Ice Age." That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll provide a link in the show notes for that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
And that's, that right there. Okay. I go up into the Snowy Range, which is just north of me here, just on the other side of the state line. That is all heavily glaciated granite. And we can climb up those mountainsides. I mean, we start out we're right at 10,500 to 11,000 feet. I mean, camp right there. You can drive right to it.
Is this in Wyoming, you're saying?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
Southern Wyoming.
Yeah.
And you can see the scratch marks of the glacier tracks coming down those rocks. You put your fingers in it. It is, I mean, it's very moving. I just put it that way. You can see firsthand evidence, almost like it was last year. And you can get a sense of the power of the movement of these glaciers and how it formed that terrain, how it presents those incredible abstract patterns that I'm always on the hunt for. It offers up what I'm searching for. That's the simplest way to put it. And I don't see myself, varying from that path.
What is it that you're searching for?
I'm looking for those big, beautiful, natural, abstract patterns that I can design with. I can make my own, and that have intimate meaning, an intimate connection, that natural connection to what surrounds us, what I choose to surround myself with.
There's a lot of similarities. I don't know that we would have been any different had we become geologists, Skip. I mean,
Probably not.
Think about what a geologist does and what an artist does. An artist is curious. A geologist is curious, right? You're on the hunt. You used that phrase earlier. You're on the hunt. You're looking for things. You're a person of discovery. You're trying to make those discoveries. What are the things that are hidden? You're both looking for, hidden truths that are revealed by the strata of the land.
Exactly. You summed it up quite well. That was up there up in the Snowies one afternoon painting, and this gentleman came along with his two dogs and drove up in his pickup, and he got out and threw his backpack on, and he kind of waved, and I waved back, and he was gone and went off on a hike, and he came back around, and by this time he was curious as to what we were doing. I was up there with my buddy Dan Young. So he came over to say, "Oh, you're painting." Yeah. Introduced himself. Well, he's a retired geologist from the University of Wyoming.
Oh, get out. Oh.
And so, of course, naturally, we struck up quite a conversation.
Yeah.
And I was asking about some rock formations there that I was including in this little field sketch that I had. And he said, well, that formation there, that is fossilized algae. It's 3 billion years old. And it's the reason we're here. He said that was the first algae to produce oxygen. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
So what's interesting, so that was near where the granite in the glaciation was as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was uncovered by the glaciation.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing that fascinates me, is the conjunction or the junction of two disparate geological histories. You have the granite, which was, came about really through slow volcanic heat and crystallization and all that. And then you've got
right.
Yeah. And then you have the sedimentation, where the slow deposit of life took place, starting with the algae and things like. Yeah, it's just fascinating
that it occurred, and the juxtaposition of those.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. It's endlessly fascinating, and you instantly realize the human connection there of life as we know it today. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, we can get pretty esoteric with this stuff, but it's all it's all part and parcel of at least why I do this, and it's like Len and his gardens and his vineyards. I mean, it's why he does that. That's his connection with it. Matt is a desert gypsy. I mean, not even a desert
gypsy. Yeah.
He loves that gypsy of being on the road, of exploring new places, primarily out here in the West, but. We have fascinating, fun conversations about what we're doing, and we're looking for, and in books we've read. That's another. I love great literature. Again, because of that connection with the process, I love to see how a good piece of literature is put together. You take it apart, put it back together again, and realize what a powerful entity it is. And those are all tools that we use as painters. And we're visual. They're literary. And the same with music. See, study the structure of it. Study the intervals. What's the overriding big shape? What are the accents? These are endlessly fascinating.
All these connections allow us to feel and to respond.
Right.
I think.
Right. They make us whole.
Yeah.
They give our vision and our thought process so much more substance to create those tie-ins, to discover those connections out there. I'm a firm believer, and I got to get an amen from the crowd.
Amen.
Amen. We talk about the process, and as I said before, it's different for every one of us, but there are still so many similarities, parallels. No two are the same.
Well, and I'm kind of as I'm going through this learning process of painting, I'm painting because of its visceralness, its physicality. That's one of the reasons I'm drawn to it, because I was in the digital world before. So this is a nice change for me, and it goes back to my roots, where I was very much interested in being outside and exploring. And as a child, I guess I'm reverting to a second childhood then. I guess that's what I'm saying here. Oh, no.
we all are, yeah. We're reverting to where, our true loves are, the things that really, as you mentioned, just the physicality of painting in itself is highly addictive, because it has such a tactile quality. I've been in love with the smell of oil paint since I was a little kid. I had an uncle that painted, and I would go visit him in his studio, and that was the first thing I remember, and I remember it to this moment, was walking in that studio and smelling that turpentine and linseed oil.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, it just brings back so many memories, and I keep my studio smelling that way too. I love walking in.
I hope
and
not too much
that
turpentine now, but
well, I've had to kind of forego the turpentine because I can't get the good stuff anymore. The stuff we have now really stinks, but I still have some good stuff. I ordered a case of it out of Canada, and I keep it around just for the aroma. But yeah, there's so many things that your senses respond to, and some people just don't have that response built in, which is fine. It keeps us as we don't need that many more. We get to keep it to ourselves.
Well, but, you mentioned, like learning music and the scales and the techniques and all that to produce beautiful music. You got to have an audience, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
you do.
Yeah. And without people to look at our paintings, it'd be kind of disappointing. We say we paint for ourselves, but we do like to show it. I do. I like the response when somebody says, "Hey, that's that's pretty nice."
Communication.
Yeah.
Right. It is our way of communication. And what I'd mentioned a little earlier was you have to dispel that idea that you're going to communicate with everybody.
Right.
You're going to communicate to the masses out there.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen, and you're going to be very disappointed if that's the position you're coming from. The point is that, again, back to a good piece of literature. That's not going to appeal to every single reader. It's going to appeal to a specific group I mean, not one that you can definitely draw a line around, but like-minded people that seek something beyond the surface. They want to walk away with a deeper experience from a great book or a great piece of music. It's, unfortunately, so much of the music today, contemporary, is just kind of noise. It doesn't really have structure to it. And painting and sculpture are the same. They're part of that same process. That yes, your work is going to connect with a few people, and those are the ones you want to talk to visually. You want them to respond to it. Others can go, yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen that. Doesn't do anything for me. Fine.
Is there a response from a person that has bought your painting or seen your painting that really stood out in your mind that you said, you accomplished what you set out to do with that painting?
There have been several that kind of come close to. I have a collector that over the years has collected a number of my pieces. They've always said that it really connects. I mean, it's an overused word. They respond to it in a very similar way that I presented it. My concept, what the point that I was trying to make, and that's fulfilling to me. They rarely, I could say never, a viewer, no matter how enthusiastic their response is, will totally get the reason that you did it. And that's okay. As long as it elicits a response in them, that it strikes a chord with them. And, again, don't want to get off in the weeds about, building a painting, but so often that becomes the challenge in the studio. That's the purpose, is I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can pull this off. I wonder if I can make it work in a new and exciting way. The more you put into these pieces, as far as the process, the building process goes, the deeper your commitment is to it. And you want to understand, probably no one will ever understand the total commitment, but if they get part of it, that's great.
I love this type of discussion. You're right. So sometimes we do go down the rabbit hole, and I do it too, of the technique and building the painting. I'm in a learning process. So those developing that vocabulary and those skills is important to me, because I want to get it out of the way so that I can do what's in my mind is translated to that 2D surface that I'm working on.
Right. And having the confidence in your mechanical skills, that's what you're talking about, of being able to make this, what I refer to is, you look out there, you see a shape and you see a color, and you're not thinking to yourself, oh gosh, what do I mix to get this? You look at it, you think it, and it happens. And that's the degree of proficiency you want with your physical materials and your thought process of you don't want to be struggling with that, with, oh my gosh, do I have the right colors out? No, you're way beyond. It's like keyboards on a piano. You can't think about the chords you're going to play. You have to think them, and they happen. So it becomes an integral part of your thought process. And that's different. That's totally different. People refer to technique, and oftentimes that's what they're referring to, is like, how do you put your paint down?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how do you mix? How do you put your paint down? Oh, what consistency is? What brushes are you using? Those things are pretty much all irrelevant, because again, they're different for each and every one of us. I don't know if you went to when you were going to school, you were still teaching penmanship, but I like to refer to it as the Palmer method of penmanship, where we all worked in forming our letters in cursive, our uppercase and lowercase. Well, 10 years later, our handwriting is not identical.
No.
It all takes on personality. And that's exactly what paint, working with manipulating a brush, mixing, putting it down on canvas, that's a handwriting. I couldn't change it if I wanted to. I can't paint like somebody else. I can watch them and go, okay, well, that's interesting. And you might see a little something here, a little something there, and say, well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't use so much paint, or maybe I need to use more paint. Simple things like that, but it doesn't affect your interpretive vision. It doesn't affect your thinking. It's just mechanics. Yeah, I mean, I like the way that guy forms a capital A, so I might try that. But within a matter of hours, that capital A would start to take on my personality.
Exactly. No
longer his. And I caution students that are in workshops that, they take a workshop with somebody that they really admire and enjoy. And oftentimes, especially among the novices, there's a feeling that they're going to go away. They'll be able to go away and paint like this person. It's like, well, if I could just get his set of clothes, then people would mistake me for that guy, and I'd be famous or I'd be successful. And it doesn't work that way.
In your dreams, yeah.
Yeah. Just give me Superman's cape. I know I can fly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was a new. This has been a new journey. Of course, I'm about 2 years into it now, so I am learning. But I probably took workshops that I really wasn't qualified to take. But I did learn. See, I didn't go into those workshops wanting to paint like the people I took the workshops from. I wanted to get the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals that can help me? And I think they succeeded very well with that. But could I paint like Matt Smith? No.
But everyone has their own portal that they go through, their own place where they start.
Yeah.
And it just, your world expands exponentially once you go through that portal, and you see how many options, opportunities, how many great thinkers are out there. And no, I'm not discouraging people. Again, please don't misunderstand. We have all different motives for taking workshops. Yours is a true motive. You want to learn. You want to learn how to do this thing, not paint like somebody else.
And I wanted to take it from the best, from what I thought was I considered the best. These are people that I'd come to know and appreciate and said, okay, well, they know what they're doing. I'm going to go and try this.
Right, and they're not going to try and blow smoke up your skirt.
Exactly.
They're not going to say, well, it's got to be my way or the highway. No, you explain these basic principles. I mean, you can say, well, just show me the rules. Well, there really are no rules. There are principles that need to be observed, but can certainly be violated if you know how to do it. Once you get a good understanding of the 5 basic principles, then it's going to be hard to go wrong. You can take those and you can run with them. You can make them your own. But you need to understand them. So it's that simple and it's that complex. Because those 5 principles, you'll spend the rest of your life studying and going back to. And if something's not working on a piece, you can track it back to one of 4 or 5 basic things. This is the reason it's not working. If I fix this, if I adjust this, if I eliminate this, it's stronger. Now it works. We try to make it too complex. We try to make it way too complicated and overthink it. And it's a quest from this point forward to simplify things, simplify your thinking, simplify your approach. That's what it's really all about.
You can hear the angst in my voice probably when I said that.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's very intimidating in the beginning because you have all this stuff.
But it's also exciting.
It's thrilling. Yeah. It's a rush when you're out there. Yeah. And that, understanding the difference between outdoors and the studio, they're 2 different worlds. Indoors, the studio is much more, I'll say, empirical in the sense that, okay, now I have to give this concept a voice. How am I going to do it? Where do I go? Where do I start? And you start building it. And outdoors, you give it voice immediately. That's the thrill. That's the addictive part of working outdoors. It just keeps you going back. Even when you get beat up, several days in a row, you keep going back. Keep the joy in what you're doing in this thing, and don't let it overcomplicate itself. It's keep the purity of your vision. And that decide what you want to say and hold on to the purity of that idea, that concept, that vision.
I'll do it.
Right on.
Right on, bro.
Yeah. Go and sin no more, my child. Yeah.
Earlier, you had talked about, I wanted to come back to this topic of, you mentioned 5 principles, and that just set off a big alarm bell in my mind. I need to come back and revisit this topic of what are those 5 principles of painting that you mentioned earlier?
They're simply, and I say simply, because these are the 5 basic things that the person, whether no matter what you're doing, whether you're writing or painting or sculpting or whatever, that you really need to keep in the forefront. Because if something starts to fall apart with your painting, you can track it back to one of these basic things. And number 1 would be, first and foremost, you have to have a good, solid concept that makes sense to you. You can actually see this painted. What is it I want to say? What do I want to convey? And then you proceed from there. It's like an idea, what's your concept for an essay or a short story?
It's the theme.
It's exactly. What is this going to be about? Okay, now, how am I going to explain that? And number 1, drawing. You've got to be able to convey what this thing is about. In other words, you have to be able to accurately describe those forms. And students will often say, oh, gosh, he's going to make us draw on. And the drawing for landscape, and that's what we're kind of talking about here, is not necessarily anatomical rendering. It's the ability to describe a mass accurately. If your drawing is off, it's not going to feel right to the viewer. So that's quite simply that you have to have a sense of accurate description of the form. And that would be number two. Number three is values. You have to understand the values. And kind of a rule of thumb for me is in my thumbnail drawing, if I can't explain to myself what I'm trying to do in three values, then I don't understand what I'm trying to say. I need to simplify it. And
so a symptom of bad design then would be if just I had so many that I just can't make sense of it. That's what I'm getting from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks like noise.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Even if you're working with a patterned composition, your value pattern needs to be simple enough that it reads graphically, so you can see across the room. And there was a great Spanish painter in the late 1800s. His name was Mariano Fortuny. He drew like an angel and painted like one also. But I was in the Metropolitan Museum some years ago in New York, and I was walking down the hallway, and I looked into one of the galleries, and these are big galleries. And all the way across the room, I saw this little line of black and white images, because Fortuny was a tremendous etcher. He did a lot of etchings. And they were small. A lot of his paintings are fairly small also. I couldn't tell what the subject was, but I didn't need to. Those little black and white images, 30 to 40 feet away, read. They were exciting. They were so stimulating to the eye. I knew immediately who it was. I didn't have to see a sign or anything else. I told a buddy of mine I was with, I said, "Oh my gosh, those have to be Fortunys." And of course we walked in, and there they were. And they're just a feast for the eye. As humans, we are attracted to those contrasts, those first reads, we call them. And that's back to the thumbnail. If you can't explain to yourself in three values, you need to rethink what you're trying to say. And so we covered concept, the drawing, the value, understanding values.
Right.
And then composition. How am I going to place these shapes within the four edges of that canvas in an exciting way? And generally, I am looking for three shapes, three masses. In other words, dividing. So I have a major shape, a secondary shape, and a small shape. And if I can keep that composition broken down to three basic shapes, then I can maintain the strength of my statement, if that makes sense.
This is really new ground for the way I think about creating a painting. So.
Oh, sure, yeah, it is, because you're dealing with a flat surface, so you're basically, it's the graphic design is nothing more than really pure composition. That's all it is. And how does that shape read? I had a great old instructor when I was in school at Art Center, and she would remind us that the first mark you put down on that canvas is the fifth one that's there. You got to wrap your head around that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that right now.
Okay. The first four marks are the edges of the canvas.
Ah, got it. Okay.
So that first mark you put down had better have some relationship to those four edges.
So true. I've never thought of it that way.
Yep. Yeah. And that's composition. That's what composition is. And sure, there are formal ways, formal approaches to it, which are very helpful. But then there are intuitive ways of breaking that space up to make it an exciting visual statement. I've taught workshops a week long of nothing but how to break up a canvas, how to divide a canvas, how to compose. And all these are suggestions. There's no, as soon as you make a rule, then you can break it. The old adage that you learned in grade school and junior high was from your art teacher was, you never want to divide your canvas through the center. Well, go study some of those great Russian painters. They loved dividing a canvas through the center.
Well, think of what some of the great cinematographers did as well. Stanley Kubrick was the master of having something dead center on the screen.
Exactly. But as a viewer, you're not aware. You don't realize that it's dead centered because there are too many counterbalances to keep it dynamic. And that's a really fun thing to do, is to divide it through the center and say, then give a head fake to the viewer that this really isn't through the center. So that's a simple challenge, or go from one corner to the other. That's another one that's fun to do. And a good example of that in those images that I sent you is Ascension. And that's what I wanted, a strong diagonal basically through the center of that square.
It seems like composition seems to be more about keeping the viewer interested in some way. So my eye is wandering through the painting. I don't know. Is that off base? I don't even know. Right way to look at it.
That's kind of a simplified definition. A more complex or a more sophisticated way of thinking is moving the eye around through what you just said. A so-called center of interest isn't necessarily that important. Is you want the eye to take a journey through the painting, and it will come to a resting place or even several resting places and then move on. But you want the eye to explore or read the entire painting. It's a journey. It's a journey within that framework.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Another simple definition is a composition is really nothing more than an interesting arrangement of 5 or fewer masses or shapes with a singular focus, and that's the journey. That's a movement within the painting.
There's been books written on this topic of composition. I mean, that's just and some of it gets really esoteric. Like they get into sacred geometry and all of those things, which I can't even begin to wrap my head around at this time.
Exactly, and the golden mean or the golden section or the dynamic symmetry. Those are all just various ways of empirically dividing a space up in an exciting way, so that two shapes repeat themselves, and they're all valuable tools. And that's exactly what they are. It's a tool to train your eye. It's to train your intuition. It's like figure drawing. I mean, when you first start out in figure drawing, you learn to measure. How many heads tall is this figure? How many heads wide? Then you break down within the head. How many, the division of the placement of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, so on and so forth. And for a month or two, you will measure everything that goes down on the paper. Put your little measuring points down on there, and voila, you have a pretty darn nice representation of a figure. Eventually, you go into that figure drawing, you have the model in front of you, and you realize, wow, I'm not measuring anymore because my eye is now trained. And the same way with these more formal ways of dividing space is, sure, you can do that early on, and you can practice. You can do all kinds of subdivisions of space just for fun. And your eye will eventually become so attuned to the relationships of whatever you're doing within the four edges of that canvas, that your divisions of space are almost automatically exciting. And then you hang a landscape on them.
Wow, you make it sound so easy, Skip.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier too that we all tend to overthink these things and make them too complicated. They don't need to be, but it's all out there. You can make it as complicated as you want. But these are fundamental tools that one needs a thorough understanding of in order to begin to make an exciting visual statement. And the last, and not the last. These are not necessarily in order, other than the concept. You got to have that first. But we talked about the concept, the drawing, the values, the composition, and we need to determine the color we're going to use. What function is color going to serve in this statement that I'm making? Is it going to be subdued, or is it going to be bright, or is it going to be mostly warm with a few cools, or is it going to be mostly cool with a few warms? Is it mostly going to be low key with a few light passages, or vice versa? These are all considerations that one has to make determining the color. So what's my palette going to be? And there again, there's some kind of an old adage that generally you don't want to go with more than 5 or 6 colors on at any given time on your palette, because you're going to end up with a fragmented color statement.
So you're saying no more than 5 or 6 tubes of color,
right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know there's a lot of folks that are saying you should have, the warm and cool of each one.
Of each.
Yeah.
Right. The way I learned in school was in painting class was, so we always had a basic 12-color palette. And over time you learn that, I don't really need all those colors for this particular painting. If I can isolate it down to, say, for this particular piece, I'm going to work a double complement. So it's, I'm looking at a sketch I have on the easel right now. And so I'm going to need, what's the most important color in this statement? Well, it's going to be kind of a grade violet. So if I'm going to work in a double complement, I have a grade violet, then I probably want a grade yellow. And green I'm going to need a green also. So then I'm going to go green, red, violet, yellow. That's going to be my palette. And for this particular piece, it's going to be a more muted palette, more subtle, not any real bright, dazzling color accents necessarily. But that's going to be the bulk of the painting. 90% of the painting is going to be off that double complement setup.
So there's thoughtful intention there. You're looking at the subject, what you intend to say, the concept, and before you even begin to mix the first puddle of color, you've decided the type of color, the approach to color before you even begin. I like this idea of thoughtfulness. That's really what's encompassed in these 5 principles. Is there's a lot of forethought and planning.
Exactly. And once you get those things resolved, you make those decisions, then you have the confidence going into the piece that, yeah, I've done all the thoughtful work. Now I can let it fly. I'm confident it should work, and now I can really have fun. I can paint with joy. As much thought should go into your color, into your palette, as goes into the composition, that goes into the drawing, that goes into the concept. They're all interrelated. And if you do these things, you're going to end up with a strong statement. I mean, the more, just like back to drawing, the more shapes you introduce, the weaker your statement becomes. So you want to make your statement in the simplest way possible. That way it maintains the strength of what you are trying to present.
Excellent. So let me see if I've got this, Skip. Let's see if I get a gold star. So the 5 principles is the first is have a good concept. What do I want to say? What's my theme? The second is drawing, the ability to describe the basic shapes and forms. And third is values. Make it simple enough that it reads well. Simplicity seems to be an overriding theme through all of this too.
Exactly. The strength is in the simplicity.
Yeah. And then composition, the placement of shapes. And this was the new thought to me is the 4 edges of the canvas are actually the first 4 marks of a composition. I think that's incredible. And the goal is to have this wonderful journey for the eye. And then 5, color, what function is color going to serve? Is it going to be subdued, bright, warm, cool? And if I can master those 5 things, then I can paint with joy.
Exactly. Yeah, those are the foundational elements of the process is all that is. And it is a thoughtful process, but you don't ever want to let those things bog you down and become a technician. That's not the point. The point is to give your statement strength and to have fun with it. Have fun with what you want to convey to the viewer. I mean, it has to come from the heart. It's going back to, like we were talking about Ralph. He's on Ralph's journey. He's not on anyone else's journey. He's on his very own. And he has a mission. And you can see it in the work. There's so much joy and enthusiasm in what he's doing. The same with Matt and with Dan. I mean, that's what we all we all hoped we want to be in that place where, oh my God, I just can't see myself doing anything but this. I would be lost if I didn't do this.
And that's a recurring theme that I hear among many of the artists that I've talked to.
Absolutely. We're all afflicted with the same...
It's an affliction in which you want no cure for.
Exactly. Are you familiar with an artist by the name of Wayne Thiebaud?
Yes, I am. In fact, I mentioned him. It's funny that you say that. I had just watched a brief interview with him, and my last podcast that I published was with John Budison, and we talked about we talked about Wayne Thiebaud, and I was just floored. I at some of the things that Thiebaud said that was really quite profound.
Oh, yeah. He's one of my favorite painters.
Wow.
And I think he's a treasure. He is an American treasure. And he's done, I've been listening to some of these interviews with him. And, I've admired his work for going on 50 years.
I think one of my favorite quotes from him was, he said, it would be nice if you could feel that you're creating some works which are worth looking at uniquely. It's an audacious quest, but a great one. I thought, wow, that's so good. I like that.
It's beautiful. I mean, and he's a very humble guy. He's just delightful to listen to him talk. And especially now. I mean, he's 98 now.
Yeah.
And, but what a brilliant mind. I love his whole process his whole thought process is just, boy, it just strikes a chord, you know. I think, yep, you've figured some things out. You've managed to stay focused in spite of all the accolades he's received and all the attention his work has received. He's maintained a balance that's really quite lovely.
I got something in the mail yesterday, which it's been on my wish list for a number of years, but I just couldn't find it because it's just extraordinarily expensive. But, you know, everybody talks about Andrew Loomis, the illustrator, and he has some great books, you know, Fun with Pencil, Creative Illustration, and all that. But the one I wanted was The Eye of the Painter. It was his last book, and it was published 2 years after he died. And they've never reprinted it. The family, for some reason, will not permit it to be reprinted.
Wow.
And I found a used copy of that. Usually they're like $200-$300. And I'm not going to pay that for a book, no matter how much I love it. But I did find one. I was just serendipitous. I found it. I bought it, and it's in outstanding condition. It even has this was the copy that Viking Press, who published it, sent out to reviewers. And it still got the reviewer slip in there requesting 2 clips. It's a bit late for that. So I got it in the mail yesterday, and I was so excited. This book is so different from anything else that Andrew Loomis had done. And he talks about his ideas and his principles. And I've just thumbed through it late last night. And I'm thinking, when you were talking about the 5 principles, I'm thinking, oh, wow, that's kind of like what Loomis is going through here, you know, in this book. It's just, you know, it's fascinating, but I wished it was available more to other folks. But anyway.
Oh, there are some great ones out there that are so difficult to get. Yeah. Did I tell you there's a great book on landscape painting by a gentleman by the name of Burge Harrison, and he was another great American painter. The title of the book is just simply Landscape Painting.
I have it.
And do you? Okay.
Yes, I do, but I don't have the, you know, like an early edition, but it's a reprint. I think it's a Dover reprint is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have one of the
that's a great
reprints
book.
also. But I had, long ago, I had put a search out for a copy of it before I found the reprints. Then one day I got an email asking me if I was still interested in the Burge Harrison book, and they had one for, I think it was $24. It was a hardcover. And I said, well, sure, yeah. I just said, okay, send $24, that's easy. Well, the book arrived, and turns out, are you familiar with another American painter? His name is Donald Teague.
No, I haven't heard of Donald Teague.
He's a great watercolorist, just a phenomenal watercolorist. He was originally from the Northeast and then moved to California many, many years ago. And I used to go to the shows where he was one of the artists showing, just to see his little watercolors. Usually it's little 6x8 They reminded me of Fortuny, those Fortuny pieces, just brilliantly painted. Anyway, bottom line here is I got the book, opened it up, and inside the cover, it says Donald Teague, Woodstock, 1919.
Oh, wow.
Then I opened it up a little bit further, and it says, to my friend Donald Teague, signed Burge Harrison.
Oh, that is awesome.
Isn't that something?
Wow. That's incredible.
Isn't that something? With kind regards, Burge Harrison.
That is a collector's item. There's one on eBay. The dust jacket is just totally messed up, but it's allegedly signed by Burge Harrison. They want $100 for this book. It's signed. I think if the dust jacket was in better shape, it would probably be a better value. You got a prize on your hand there. That's nice.
Oh, absolutely, and it's in very good shape. Very good shape, because it obviously, Donald had it on his wall or on his bookshelf out there. It came out of California, so it was out of his estate.
And you said that was the 1919 edition?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
See, the one
and
on...
it was originally, this is a 7th edition. And this one was Scribner's 1917. It was when it was printed. And it was originally published in 1909.
Okay, yeah. See, the one on eBay right now is 1926.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an even later one.
Yeah, and it's signed to my friend. I can't read it. It's hard to make out. Someone Summers, Burge Harrison. So it looks like it's genuine.
Oh, I imagine it probably is. But it was several years ago, 3 years ago, at the Prix de West, I was awarded the Donald Teague Award for a work on paper, and I just thought, oh, what a wonderful, because he was another one of my heroes. Out of school, I was familiar. He was a great illustrator in New York for a number of years, and then he, just like so many of those guys in the Northeast, said, I'm finished with this. I'm going to go west and paint pictures.
I get it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's Bob Kuhn. Tom Lovell, John Clymer. And I knew all those guys. I met them, and they were heroes of mine when I was a kid. I would save Tom Lovell's illustrations out of National Geographic because they're so beautifully painted. And I remember when I met Tom, he was confined to a wheelchair at that time, and I said, "Mr. Lovell, I've admired your work from the time I was very, very young." And he said, "Oh, thank you." And I said, I still have in my files the painting you did for National Geographic of the Egyptian market scene. And he said, "Oh, I remember that one. Oh, yeah." And I still have it.
Yes.
It's great.
I tell you, the illustrators were just, I have no problem calling them artists because that's what they were. They were artists.
Oh, absolutely.
They were amazing.
Harvey Dunn, holy cow. There was another great American painter. Yeah. He had powerful things. The Denver Art Museum has one of its classic pieces that, every time I go to the museum, I make a pilgrimage in there to look at that Dunn. It is a very limited palette and real subtle key on it, and a group of figures all sitting on the ground. Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, I visited a place called Three Hearts Farm. It's owned by Meredith Wilson. It's about 30 miles south of where I live. It's near the city of Newnan. It's just an absolutely beautiful place. They host a number of workshops, artist workshops there. It's just a fantastic place, and she has a fantastic art collection. And she has an original Leondecker in her living room.
Oh, yeah.
It's a large painting. Wow, this thing is amazing.
Oh, it is. In fact, Leindecker's estate is at the Stockton Art Museum, the Hagen Museum in Stockton, California. Boy, do they have an incredible collection, and they did a book on him, which the group, the Plein Air Painters of America, Papa group that we belong to, we had a couple shows there at the Hagen, and they gave us each one of those Leindecker books that they had.
Meredith was also good friends with illustrator and artist Mark English, and she had several English paintings, and she had written the foreword to a book that he had written, but that book is nearly impossible to find as well.
Now, the book on Mark?
Mark English, yeah.
Yeah. I was not aware there was even a book out on him.
Yeah, there's one, but I can't find it anywhere. Wow. So I've just got it kind of Google alert and just see if it pops up somewhere. I'd like to get it.
Yeah.
She had a couple
That's the crew I grew up with as far as when I was in school and really admired the illustrators. I mean, I didn't know a guy could make a living as a painter. I wanted to be a figure illustrator but partway through school I realized illustration was not my number one choice. I want to be a painter.
Right.
But yeah, Mark English, Bernie Fuchs, Bob Peake, all those guys, those were the ones we just followed after like puppies,
Meredith also had a couple of pieces by N.C. Wyeth. One was an easel painting that he did because he didn't want to be just an illustrator. He wanted to be a painter, and she has one of his paintings there, and then she's got one of his illustrations. But it's a large illustration. It was for a book cover. I forget the name of the book, but the problem is it needs conservative work because it's just flaking all over.
Oh, so many of those do. Yeah. And see, those guys, they were under real tight time constraints. And one of the things that they would do is add a lot of dryer to their paints. And that's not good. Over long haul, they start to fall apart. Dean Cornwell was another tremendous painter. Holy cow. God, are you familiar with James Reynolds?
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to get his books too.
You do have one of his?
I don't, no.
Oh, you're one of those that are lusting after one of his books. They're his books.
So you better lock up your studio there.
Well, it was it was 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
He had a group of us down to a studio for a week, and he said he wanted to do a workshop. And I said, well, okay. And he was a good friend. He and Matt were really good friends. And
yeah.
Jim was a good friend of mine too, but Matt was a lot closer to him. Anyway, he invited about 6 of us down for a week to just come to the studio. He said, this is a workshop, but it's not going to be, I'm not charging anybody anything. I want you guys to come in and we can just sit around and talk about painting and we can BS and we can just talk about stuff. He said, I just want to be around some of my artist buddies.
Yeah.
So we did a week. We sat in his studio and just visited with him. And, and he told stories and he was working on a little piece and just talking about how he painted and all these things. It was, again, it's one of those treasured memories.
Yes.
The time that you have with him. Because it wasn't too long after that he was diagnosed with cancer and he was gone.
Yeah, I never had the privilege of meeting him. My interest in art came much too late.
After.
Yeah. I had interest years ago, but, because of my business, I never could pursue it. I'd do a little dabble here and a little dabble there, and it wasn't worth much other than it was therapy for me, but that was about it. Skip, I understand you got an exciting trip coming up. You're going to be painting with some of your buddies real soon here.
Yes, I am headed down to Arizona, meet up with Matt and Ralph Oberg and Dan Young. We are working on a 4-man retrospective and it's going to open at the Steamboat Art Museum, and it basically is covering at least 30 years that we've all traveled together, the four of us. We've traveled to many different places and painted together, and so the museum kind of wants to present this 3 decades or more of painting buddies doing stuff, and document it all with some of the old photographs, the tin types. The old
goes
guys.
Back that far.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. It feels like it. But it's an exciting project, and we do manage to have a lot of fun together.
I imagine having that perspective of 30 years, you really get to see how each of you have grown as an artist.
Oh, completely. Yeah, just see the transitions and in the work and in the friendship. It really is a small tribe, as my dear old friend William F. Reese used to say. He said, it's a great group we have, and traveling together and sharing ideas and concepts, and just it's very energizing and nourishing for the old noggin to get out and share ideas with your buddies.
Where did you say the museum was?
It's in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Very nice museum. They've done an excellent job developing that. It's a beautiful old historic building that they've completely renovated, and beautiful space, great lighting. It's right on Main Street in Steamboat Springs, which is a historic town in itself. It was originally an old ranching community over on the western slope of the Rockies, and it's now a major ski area, and still a lot of ranching goes on over there.
What part of Arizona will you be painting in?
Flying into Phoenix, and Matt's going to pick me up, and he lives in Scottsdale, up north of town, and right up against the National Forest. And he has some new canyons that he has discovered that he's excited to show us.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love painting down in the desert, especially in that kind of country. Again, very rich geology down there, and big, massive shapes, and great light. This is a good time of the year to go down too. Not too hot, and the sun's still, and the winter sun is low enough to cast some. You have good light all day long with dramatic shadows and great form. So yeah, it's exciting. The desert has a brutal kind of beauty to it. It's austere, but it's exciting. It's from there's textures, and it's all its forms, and it's mostly there was a lot of volcanic activity down there, so you get some really dramatic color too in the rocks.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes out of that trip. That's going to be.
Neither can I.
Yeah.
And we're all excited to see what comes out of it. But Matt has a 4-wheeler, and Ralph's bringing one down, because these areas that we're going into, you just can't drive back into. And Ralph and I are not that young anymore, so we need to, we can't hike all that over that country very far and schlepping our gear. So,
but man, Ralph is he's in good shape for his age.
Well, yeah, I take that back, because Ralph, he's in excellent shape. Ralph's bound and determined to. I mean, he's going to go out and leave a smoking hole in the ground. He's right. He's getting some of these really wonderful expeditions. I mean, really major backpacking trips in while he can. And I really admire him.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's been following the glaciers that, which sadly have been diminishing of late. It's just, but it's amazing to see the paintings that he's created.
I know. Ralph's doing some really exciting work now. He's locked in. I mean, he's really following his heart, and hard to go wrong when you do that. You know, the work is so honest and so Ralph. And yeah, I'm excited for him, and it's always fun to see new projects.
Well, have fun on that trip.
I think we'll probably manage to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
We usually do.
Oh, boy.
So.
Hey, Skip, I really have enjoyed having you on The Artful Painter. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. There's just so much here that we could explore in depth, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Well, same here, Carl. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and look forward to our paths crossing sometime soon.
Got to make it happen. We'll do it.
Got to. Absolutely.
All right.
Well, thank you, my friend.
I'm deeply grateful that Skip Whitcomb took the time to talk with us today. I know this was a long episode, but I think you will agree that it was worth it. And of course, that's what the pause button is for. You can listen to it in chunks. If you stuck with me this far, I applaud you. I did debate whether or not I would break this up into 2 parts, but I decided to keep it all together in one file. I think it's easier to reference everything that way. Artists like Skip certainly deserve to have their stories told and their wisdom preserved, no matter how long the episode is. Some of the artwork that Skip talked about in this episode, you can see those images at my website, carlolson.tv, and you can also see much more of his art by visiting Skip's website at skipwhitcomb.com. Links are provided in the show notes. As always, I enjoy getting feedback from you, the listener. This one is from Rosie Phillips. She says, I wanted to let you know how much I am enjoying the podcast. I listen to them while doing my daily treadmill walk or if on a long drive on the highway, which really helps to pass the time. Your interviews are different from others I've listened to, and I feel like I'm getting to know the artists on a more personal level, like they are real people like me. I love hearing about their early on struggles, what inspires them now, and some of the tools or procedures that they use today that are successful for them. I, like you, started my artistic journey late in life when I was around 50 and have been painting in oils only for about 9 years. There is so much to learn, and it is great to hear the stories of our current, latest, and greatest artists. Thank you for sharing these with us. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that feedback. And I want to commend you, too, for including your website. Rosie's website is rosiephillips.com. I have to say, your website looks great, and so does your artwork. Very well done. Thank you. My next feedback comes from Marid Karula. I truly admire your podcast. Great conversations and content sharing. Love your work. Please keep it up. Best art podcast I listened to so far. By the way, keep painting, Carl. Hey, thank you for that encouragement. And yes, I do need to keep painting. Sometimes, this podcast takes a lot of time to produce, and that's time away from painting. So I have to admit that is something I'm struggling with at the moment, trying to figure out how to balance all that out. And that's among taking care of family responsibilities as well. So it's a real challenge. One thing I've hesitated to do in the past is to ask for help with this podcast. And I think the time has come for that because I want to keep producing great content for you. I think the artists have a story to be told. And so to do that, it takes, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of time. Now, the way this podcast came about is about 2 years ago, I attended a week-long workshop by the Plein Painters of America at the Booth Museum in Cartersville, Georgia. And it was a transformative moment for me in my learning to paint. The instructors at that workshop encapsulated years of experience and incomparable painting wisdom. And I realized at that time, at that workshop, that these artists have something to say that's worth preserving. So the idea of doing The Artful Painter came to mind. Now, it's true, there are other podcasts out there that feature interviews with artists, and I listen to them and I enjoy them. However, I felt there was more to be said. And one thing I resolved to do differently in my interviews with artists was to avoid the tired, old trope of tell us about yourself and then proceeded to an hour-long story beginning with, I picked up a crayon when I was 2 years old, and then go from there. While that is an important part of an artist's story, that's what a biography is for. I wanted to jump right in to what the artist is doing right now and gain insight on their processes today, their processes for finding a concept and creating a painting, what they are doing right now. If the conversation happens to do a flashback to the artist's early development, that's fine because it now adds context to where the artist is today in the development of their craft. I strongly feel what artists are doing today and the direction that they are going in the future is a far more compelling narrative. And hence, that is one big reason why I chose to do The Artful Painter. Now, producing this podcast and sharing it with you, whether you're an artist, a collector, or someone who simply loves art, it's a joy to me, and I'll keep doing it. However, I will admit it takes a considerable amount of time and money to produce. In each episode, I seek to present artist guests in the best possible light. Now, most podcasters record an interview and then they just publish it as is. That's the problem I have with all existing interview podcasts with artists today. Every one of them do this. They just record the interview and publish it as is. Their audio levels are all over the place. The host talks way too much about themselves. Now, I admit I talk about myself too, and I think a little bit helps the conversation. But sometimes it just gets to be too much. And if you really knew what was going on behind the scenes here, I do too, but I edit a lot of that out so that the focus is on the artist. And the other thing other podcasts do is they leave in all the errors and mistakes that are made in the podcast. It's okay to have some because it's life. It makes it real. But sometimes there's things that are they really shouldn't be in the podcast. So take them out. To me, to not do these things, to not edit your podcast or give it the care that it needs, to me, this is disrespectful to the audience and to the guests that appear on my show. I endeavor to produce the highest quality content possible, and frankly, it takes a lot of time to do that. So if you like what you hear in The Artful Painter and you would like to help support the show, I welcome your donations to help offset the cost of publishing The Artful Painter. I'm looking forward to expanding the show by scheduling more interviews with artists that inspire you. To help, all you have to do is donate. And there's a button on my website. All you have to do is go to carlolson.tv/donate. And you can donate whatever you want, whether it's $1, $100, or something in between, or something more. It doesn't matter. Anything that you do to help is very much appreciated. So I want to thank you for your support of The Artful Painter. I love hearing from everyone. To send me a note, go to my website at carlolson.tv and click the Contact tab, and I'll get your message that way. Thank you for listening to The Artful Painter. I'll see you in the next episode.
And we're getting a picture on the TV.